Stand in the ruins of Alexandria today, and you're standing where the most powerful woman in the ancient world once ruled, and where scholars debated philosophy and pharaohs commanded empires, where two of Rome's greatest generals fell under the spell of a single queen. Walk the banks of the Nile, and you're walking the same river she sailed, draped in gold, dressed as the goddess Isis herself. She wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was Greek, a descendant of one of Alexander the Great's generals. But she learned the Egyptian language, mastered its religion, and made herself into a living deity. She spoke 9 languages. She studied mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. She commanded armies, navies, and the hearts of men who commanded the world. History remembers her as a seductress. That's the myth. The truth is far more dangerous and far more interesting. Using advanced AI trained on historical imagery, we can take the carvings on ancient temple walls, the faded illustrations from medieval manuscripts, and see them as they might have actually appeared in real life. The gold, the linen, the kohl-rimmed eyes surveying a world she intended to rule. You're about to witness one of the most extraordinary lives in human history. This is the entire story of Cleopatra. Sit back as we journey through the life of the last pharaoh of Egypt. The year is 69 BC. Egypt is the wealthiest kingdom in the Mediterranean world, but it is also a kingdom on borrowed time. The Ptolemaic dynasty, Greek rulers who have sat on the Egyptian throne for over 2 centuries, are losing their grip. Rome is rising. Rome is always rising, and Rome has developed an uncomfortable habit of absorbing kingdoms that can no longer defend themselves. Into this world, Cleopatra VII Philopator is born. Her father is Ptolemy XII, a man Alexandrians nickname Auletes, the flute player, and not affectionately. He's considered weak, undignified, a king more interested in music and pleasing Rome than in defending his people. He once watched while Roman consul Cato seized Cyprus, an Egyptian territory, without lifting a finger. The people of Alexandria rioted. It drove him out of the city entirely. But Cleopatra watches her father. She watches how he survives, how he navigates, how he flatters and bargains and maneuvers. She is learning everything he does wrong and everything he does right. From the moment she can read, she is relentless. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of human knowledge in the ancient world, is practically her classroom. Philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, rhetoric. She studies medicine and alchemy. She becomes one of the few Ptolemaic rulers in 200 years to actually bother learning Egyptian. Her ancestors ruled Egypt for generations without ever speaking to its people in their own language. Cleopatra speaks to everyone, in their language, on their terms. She also speaks Latin and Greek and Aramaic and Ethiopian, and the languages of the Parthians, the Medes, the Arabs. 9 languages in total, according to the ancient historian Plutarch. She never needed an interpreter. She never let anyone else control what was being said in a room. That's not a seductress. That's a strategist. In 51 BC, Ptolemy XII dies. Cleopatra is 18 years old. She inherits the throne of Egypt jointly alongside her 10-year-old brother Ptolemy XIII, who is also by Egyptian royal tradition her husband. This is not unusual. This is the Ptolemaic way. It is also deeply unstable, because a 10-year-old king has powerful advisors who are not 10 years old. And those advisors, a eunuch named Pothinus, a general named Achilles, a tutor named Theodotus, have no intention of letting an ambitious young queen rule without them. For 3 years, Cleopatra holds them off. She travels Egypt, which her ancestors never did, presenting herself in person to the priests and the people as the daughter of Ra, the living embodiment of Isis. She understands something her Greek predecessors never grasped. In Egypt, the throne is not political. It is divine. If the people believe you are a goddess, they do not merely obey you, they protect you. But by 48 BC, the palace faction has had enough. They move against her. Cleopatra is driven out of Alexandria, forced to flee into exile in Syria. She assembles an army at the border. Her younger brother sits on the Egyptian throne. The advisors who control him are preparing for war. And then Julius Caesar arrives. Rome's civil war has followed Caesar to Egypt. His rival Pompey, defeated at the Battle of Pharsalus, has sailed for Alexandria seeking asylum. He believes Egypt owes him. He helped Ptolemy XII reclaim his throne years ago. He expects gratitude. What he gets is a knife. Ptolemy XIII's advisors, calculating which Roman general is going to win, have Pompey murdered as he steps off his boat. They present his head to Caesar as a gift. Caesar is not pleased. He was owed a rival, not a corpse. He sets himself up in the royal palace in Alexandria. He plans to arbitrate between the feuding siblings. He summons both of them. Cleopatra cannot simply walk into the palace. Her brother's forces control the city. She would be arrested or killed before she reached Caesar, so according to the ancient sources, she has herself rolled inside a linen sack, some say a carpet, and smuggled past the guards. When it's unrolled in front of Julius Caesar, there she is. She's 21 years old. What happens next changes the ancient world. Caesar is 52, the most powerful man alive. A general who has conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon, and won a civil war. He has seen everything the world has to offer. He's never met anyone like Cleopatra. It is not simply her appearance, and the ancient sources are actually fairly restrained on that point. It is her voice, her wit, her absolute command of every room she enters. Plutarch writes that her conversation had an irresistible charm, that simply spending time in her presence was overwhelming. Within days, Caesar and Cleopatra are lovers. Within months, Caesar is fighting a war in the streets of Alexandria to put her back on the throne. The Alexandrian War is vicious. Ptolemy XIII's forces trap Caesar's much smaller garrison in the royal quarter of the city. Roman soldiers burn ships in the harbor, and the fire spreads, destroying, some say partially, some say entirely, the great library of Alexandria. Centuries of human knowledge, smoke rising into the Mediterranean sky. Caesar holds out through the winter. When reinforcements finally arrive, the fighting spills into the streets, into the harbor. Ptolemy XIII flees by boat and drowns in the Nile, weighed down by his golden armor. Cleopatra is queen, undisputed, absolute. She is also pregnant with Caesar's child. She travels with Caesar up the Nile on a royal barge, a floating palace, 200 escort vessels, showing him her kingdom. She introduces him to its gods, its temples, its ancient power. She is consolidating everything. A Roman alliance secured, an heir on the way, and a kingdom finally entirely hers. The child is born in 47 BC. She names him Ptolemy Caesar. The Alexandrians call him something else, Caesarion, Little Caesar. When Caesar finally leaves Egypt, Cleopatra follows him to Rome with the child. She stays in Caesar's own villa across the Tiber. Rome is scandalized. Caesar is married to someone else. He erects a golden statue of Cleopatra in the Temple of Venus. The message is impossible to miss. He sees himself not merely as a Roman general, but as something divine. And she is his equal. Then on the Ides of March, 44 BC, 23 senators surround Julius Caesar in the theater of Pompey and stab him 23 times. Cleopatra takes Caesarion and flees back to Egypt. Rome tears itself apart. On one side, Caesar's adopted heir, the cold and calculating Octavian. On the other, Caesar's loyal general, the passionate and impulsive Mark Antony. They fight their enemies. They fight each other. They carve the Roman world between them. Antony takes the East, the wealthy, ancient, sophisticated East, which means he needs Egypt, and Egypt means Cleopatra. In 41 BC, Antony summons her to meet him at Tarsus in modern-day Turkey. He expects her to come as a subject, a minor Eastern queen answering a Roman general's call. What arrives changes everything. Cleopatra sails into the harbor on a barge with a gilded stern, purple sails, and silver oars. She reclines beneath a golden canopy, dressed as Aphrodite. Her attendants are dressed as sea nymphs. Incense burns across the water. Music drifts toward the shore. The entire population of Tarsus rushes to the harbor to watch. Antony, sitting on his tribunal waiting to receive her, is left alone. The crowd has abandoned him. She has not answered a summons. She has made an entrance. The message is deliberate and precise. You called for a queen. A goddess came. Antony is captivated, completely, irreversibly, permanently. They spend the winter together in Alexandria, in a city intoxicated with its own luxury. They form a society with their inner circle called the Inimitable Livers, a group dedicated to experiencing everything life has to offer, as extravagantly as possible. Banquets that last until dawn, philosophical debates, theatrical performances, hunting trips and drinking contests. They are brilliant, both of them. And in each other they have found the one person who can match them. But the world will not leave them alone. Antony returns to Rome. He marries Octavian's sister Octavia as a political gesture, and Cleopatra is left in Alexandria to give birth to twins, a boy and a girl, Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene, sun and moon. She rules alone. She manages Egypt's vast economy with the competence of a trained administrator, not merely a monarch. She expands trade routes. She negotiates with neighboring kings. She is running a kingdom alone while raising 3 children, and she does it exceptionally well. Antony returns to her in 37 BC. Whatever political calculations he has made, whatever Roman duties he has tried to honor, the pull is too strong. He comes back to Alexandria, and he does not leave. He gives Cleopatra territories: Cyprus, Crete, parts of Syria, the Lebanon coast, regions of what is now Jordan. He gives her children another son, Ptolemy Philadelphus. In Rome, Octavian watches, and Octavian is recording everything. The donations of Alexandria, 34 BC. Antony stages a magnificent ceremony in the great gymnasium of Alexandria. Cleopatra sits on a golden throne dressed as Isis. Antony declares Caesarion the legitimate son and heir of Julius Caesar, a direct challenge to Octavian's claim as Caesar's heir. He distributes eastern territories to his children by Cleopatra like a king distributing provinces. He is acting like a Roman general who has gone native, who has chosen Egypt over Rome, a foreign queen over his Roman wife. Octavian reads every report in public. He is building a case. Antony isn't a rival, he tells Rome. He's a traitor, bewitched by an Eastern seductress, an enemy of Roman values, a man who has forgotten what it means to be Roman. It's propaganda, carefully crafted. But it works. In 32 BC, Octavian declares war, not on Antony. That would be a civil war, Roman against Roman. He declares war on Cleopatra, on Egypt, on the foreign queen who has stolen a Roman general's mind. The final confrontation comes at Actium, on the western coast of Greece, in 31 BC, the sea battle that decides the fate of the world. Antony and Cleopatra's combined fleet against Octavian's Admiral Agrippa. The fighting is fierce and confused. Then Cleopatra's squadron, 60 ships strong, breaks through the battle line and sails south. Antony, seeing her fleet pull away, abandons his flagship and follows her. Why she left, whether it was retreat, a pre-planned escape, panic, or something else entirely, historians have argued ever since. But the result is total. Without their commanders, Antony's fleet collapses. His land army surrenders. The war's over in an afternoon. They retreat to Alexandria. The last stand of a dynasty. Octavian marches on Egypt, and everything falls apart. One by one, Antony's remaining allies surrender or switch sides. His soldiers melt away. Even his trusted officers begin negotiations with Octavian. He writes to Octavian offering to kill himself if Cleopatra will be spared. He receives no reply. Someone tells Antony that Cleopatra is dead. She isn't, but he believes it. He turns to his last loyal servant and asks him to run him through with his sword. The servant can't do it. He runs himself through it instead. Antony falls on his own sword and survives long enough to be carried to the mausoleum where Cleopatra has barricaded herself. She will not open the doors. She's afraid of being captured, so Antony is hauled up through the upper window while Cleopatra herself with 2 of her women pulls on ropes. The ancient sources describe this scene. This queen straining with the weight, bleeding from her hands, pulling the dying man she loves up a wall. He dies in her arms, the last Roman who was hers. Cleopatra is 39 years old. Octavian enters Alexandria. He grants her an audience. She is disheveled. She has been tearing at her own face and breast in grief. She is sick. He tells her she will be treated with honor. He does not say what he means, which is that he intends to parade her through Rome in chains at his triumph. She knows it. She has spent her entire life reading rooms. She reads this one perfectly. She asks permission to perform funeral rites for Antony. It is granted. She visits his tomb. She performs the ceremony. She returns to her chambers. She dresses herself in her royal robes. She calls for a basket of figs. Inside the basket, according to the most enduring version of the story, is a cobra. The asp, the Egyptian symbol of divine royalty, worn on the headdress of the pharaohs for 3,000 years. When Octavian's men force open the door, Cleopatra is dead, lying on her golden bed in her royal dress, her 2 attendants dying beside her. There are 2 small marks on her arm, or perhaps none at all. The ancient sources contradict each other. Perhaps it was poison she had been secretly developing for months, testing on prisoners, looking for a death that was painless and quick. Either way, she chose it. Right to the end, she controlled the terms. Octavian reportedly wept, not from grief, but from frustration. He had wanted his triumph. He had wanted his prisoner. She had denied him both. Caesarion, her son by Caesar, is hunted down and executed. He is 17. He is the last of his line. Octavian will not leave a rival Caesar alive. Octavian takes Egypt. He becomes Augustus. The Roman Empire begins. The ancient world ends. A single queen's fall marks the pivot point between everything before and everything after. The Ptolemaic dynasty, which lasted nearly 3 centuries, ends with her. 3,000 years of pharaonic rule over Egypt, the longest civilization in human history, ends with her. She was the last. There would never be another. But history has not been fair to her. For 2,000 years, the story told was Octavian's story. Roman historians, men writing for Roman audiences under the Roman Empire Octavian built, portrayed her as a dangerous foreign seductress, a witch who had destroyed 2 great Roman men, a warning to other women about the consequences of ambition. The queen who mastered 9 languages became a temptress. The administrator who managed one of the ancient world's most complex economies became a kept woman. The strategist who held her throne against palace coups, Roman generals, and civil war became a cautionary tale. The real Cleopatra was all of the things they feared. She ruled Egypt for 21 years. She kept her kingdom independent when every other Eastern monarchy was being absorbed by Rome. She formed alliances with the 2 most powerful men in the world, and she did not do it by being beautiful. She did it by being brilliant, indispensable, impossible to ignore. She read the room right until the very last moment, and when there was no more room to read, she denied her enemy his victory with characteristic precision. She was 39 years old. Her tomb has never been found. Somewhere beneath Alexandria, perhaps beneath the sea, the ancient shoreline has long since shifted and submerged. The last pharaoh of Egypt lies waiting. Archaeologists are still searching. The greatest treasure of the ancient world. Egypt would not be free again for nearly 2,000 years. Stand on any street in modern Alexandria today, and you're standing above the memory of a city she built and a world she fought to protect. The library is gone. The palace is gone. The dynasty is gone. The name endures, passed down through 2,000 years of storytelling. The last queen who refused until the very final moment to be anything less than everything. That's what makes Cleopatra, Cleopatra. Brilliant, relentless, complicated, and 2,000 years later, impossible to forget. Thanks for watching. Creating videos like this takes an enormous amount of research and time, piecing together the scattered fragments of an ancient life into one story worth telling. If you enjoyed this journey through one of history's greatest figures, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the lives that shaped our world. And let me know in the comments, whose story would you like to see next? History lives in every grain of the hourglass. We'll see you in the next era.